Time for bed.
But Christmas is tomorrow. I'm too excited to sleep.
Would you go to sleep if I told you a bedtime story?
Okay.
'Twas the night before Christmas, and Mommy and the kids were worried about Daddy when they heard about the bus crash on the radio. But Daddy came home safe and sound, and it was the best Christmas ever.
Yay!
However, everybody on the packed bus died, and their family spent Christmas Day identifying bodies and planning funerals.
What the fuck?
Christmas Carol Catastrophes, a podcast about the oddest Christmas songs ever unleashed on an unsuspecting public, starts November 17th.
No, really. What in the actual fuck?
Hello and welcome to Pods Like Us. I'm Martin Quibell, known to my friends as Marv, and this time I'm joined by MJ and Sarah from we'll discuss this in a bit, soon to come out show called Let's Party with Marty. Hey guys, thanks for speaking with me today.
Hey, thanks for having us.
I'm starting a bit differently to usual. So you're entering the world of podcast. Is this the first time for both of you, or have you delved these waters before now?
Oh yeah, we are. I think we determined combined have 20 years experience in podcasting ish, right?
Wow.
So
it's
yeah,
gotta be close to.
Yeah, I've been podcasting in some way, shape, or form for about 9-10 years now. So yeah, this is actually my third. Actually, if you really want the origin story, it's my fifth podcast that I've co-hosted, but it's my third concurrently. I have 3 shows coming out right now. And one of them is with Sarah.
Yeah.
And then, 2 of them now are with Sarah, I should say.
Yeah, so this is our second, Let's Party with Marty is our second one together. So while it is not yet to come out, there are more than 100 hours of the stuff that we've done together already. So yeah.
I should have done some research if I'd have known that. But I mean, so what is the concept then of Let's Party with Marty? Is it just a basic let's watch one of Marty's films and discuss it, or is there a bit more to it than that?
Yeah, a little more to it than that. So we're both huge Martin Scorsese fans, and I've sort of talked about on our other show quite a bit about how we can try and shoehorn a Marty season into what we talk about over there, which is usually about Jaws or related to Jaws, and sort of couldn't figure out how exactly we would make that work. And then recently, or at least recently at time of recording, Martin Scorsese joined Letterboxed, which is, if people don't know, where you sort of log the films that you've seen, you can write reviews, etc., make lists. And he made this list of the 59 companion films that he thought would go well with his own films. And this sort of got us excited, really, in that it's not just let's go through all of the films that Scorsese has directed, which, you know, I'm not saying anyone could do, but yeah, that sort of seems like the fairly obvious route to take. And this was kind of like, okay, we can do that, but also we can go through these companion films at the same time and not just get an insight into the films that Scorsese has made, but the films that sort of made him want to make films, or the films that he thinks go well with his films. So that was an exciting concept for us. So I think at the moment we've got about 98 episodes planned. So that's sort of a mixture of Scorsese's own directed films and then films that he has sort of put on this companion films list for us to dive into as well.
It's great. So, I mean, for anybody that doesn't know, that there is one big connection between Mr. Scorsese and the film Jaws as well. I think you mentioned that you're talking about Jaws, but there is a big connection there between the two, isn't there?
Is there?
Well, wasn't he the one who suggested the change of how to kill the shark?
I don't
Possibly.
believe so. I'm not sure. I don't know. I know
if it is, we just learned something.
yeah. If it is, we just learned something. Okay.
Yes, he did.
My cat has the loudest meow in the world, and I'm sorry about that. If he just runs around screaming, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I know that Spielberg affected the making of Cape Fear with Robert De Niro, the Cape Fear remake, because Spielberg was going to direct that, and then Scorsese was going to direct Schindler's List, weirdly. So they swapped projects. Spielberg was basically like, I'll give you Cape Fear if you give me Schindler's List. And he is the one who suggested, spoilers for Cape Fear, which is like a 32-year-old movie now. But he is the one who suggested that De Niro kill the maid and take her outfit right before the climax happens. And if you watch Cape Fear, you'll see an establishing shot of the house right before that kicks off, and there's a shooting star in the background, and that shooting star is an homage to Spielberg, because Spielberg, there's like this famous debate over shooting stars that are in Jaws, and he's put them in a lot of his films. So I know that connection between Cape Fear and Schindler's List and Spielberg. Yeah.
But yes, it was Marty who suggested the change and how to kill the shark at the end, and then they changed it, sort of like an 11th hour change was made by the script writers to work that in there.
I mean, they're contemporaries and friends of each other as well, so it's entirely reasonable that they're sort of influence on each other's films. And I think that us sort of liking Jaws as much as we do, and that being the focus of our first podcast, it's like it's not too many degrees of separation away from Marty, really, and that's where we've ended up.
Yeah, because I think I've seen photographs of Marty on location with Spielberg and the team, and I think George Lucas was there with them as well, and possibly Coppola, because they were all, like you said, they were all contemporaries and friends with each other and helped each other out with projects and made suggestions quite a lot. You look on the Star Wars sets and you'll find Spielberg on the set, and Marty occasionally going and visiting George as well. So it's amazing. So what sort of research are you doing then? Because I'm assuming you've already got some episodes in the can ready to go.
Not yet.
we're
Go on, MJ.
MJ? He's busy with the cat.
The cat unplugged my headphones when he jumped off my lap.
Chaos always.
Yeah, so we are recording our we have episode 0 out, which is like an introduction to who we are as podcasters and the premise of the show. And then episode 1 should be out on Tuesday the 21st, I believe. But we have not recorded that yet. We're at time of this recording, we are recording it this weekend. But we are loading up on Scorsese books and documentaries and behind bits and bobs here and there. There's an audiobook we're both listening to. Sarah, I think you're reading 3 Scorsese books at the same time.
Something? not to be advised, because I keep thinking of what was that really good quote? Which book was that in? And then I'm going through my 3 Scorsese books. Where is it?
Yeah. And then just obviously watching the films, but then also I've watched a couple of the films that are not full-length films, feature-length films. All his feature-length films are on there, but there's a couple short films on there that or that are not on the list, right? And so I'm going and watching a couple of those. Like I watched the video for Bad that he directed for Michael Jackson the other night, and just like really thought about Scorsese's directing at the forefront of my mind when I've watched it, because I've never, I've seen the Bad video a bunch. That's one of the most famous music videos of all time. But it's so interesting watching it, thinking about Scorsese directing it and being on set and having to work in an aspect ratio he's not used to, right? Because it's 4:3, it has to be formatted for, old school CRT television sets, and he's used to working with, super wide 35 millimeter film. And just seeing how he takes his sensibilities from that and applies it to this shot on video, I think it looks like to me, shot on video medium that's still, because Scorsese and Michael Jackson at the time was, Michael Jackson is an 18-minute short film. And to see his sort of what if the Warriors did West Side Story take on that is really, really fascinating, and just something I'd never thought of before. So it's a lot of reading and a lot of just watching stuff that you may not have really considered Scorsese as a presence in that thing until now.
I mean, it's surprising because I'm pretty sure that the Thriller video, I thought that was done on film by
I think
Landis.
so. Yeah, that's widescreen. Yeah.
And I think, did Spike Lee do the Remember the Time video? Was that on film or was that on video? I'm not really
that I'm
sure.
not sure. I think you're right about Spike Lee doing the Remember the Time video. But yeah, Landis shot Thriller on film, but I think it got some sort of theatrical exhibition as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it went at the cinema as well. So that's the research. So how are you choosing which topics that you're going to pick then? I mean, are you doing all of the 59 films and then Marty's films as well? Is that how it's... And you're being picky with Marty's films, or are you going to eventually do all of them?
We're kind of married to the list a little bit. So on the Letterboxed list that Marty put out, he's listed the companion films and then the one of his that it is the sort of companion film too. The way we're sort of describing it as like the Martin Scorsese film is the main course and the companion film is like the wine that goes with it. So we're kind of watching it in that way, but we're having the wine first and then the meal. So we're doing the the companion films and then the Scorsese film that goes with it. So for example, our first episode is going to be about the John Cassavetes film Shadows, and then the Marty film that pairs with is Who's That Knocking at My Door. As you go through the list, there are some films that have, I think like Raging Bull and Killers of the Flower Moon have got like 4 or 5 companion films each, because Marty is such a cinema guy that it was like they were probably like, no, look, just do one film per film, and he's like, no, and then just like reels off about 5 films or whatever that informed his choices or that he thinks pairs well with it. So yeah, we're pretty stuck to that list. There are some things, there's not many things that aren't on the list of his own filmography, like a couple of shorts and things that he sort of hasn't included on this Letterboxd list, which, depending on how things go, like further down the line, we might sort of look at covering those as well as sort of bonus content, or just because we're completists really, and we like, we like to, so I want to have like 100% of like viewed all Marty films on Letterboxd. Like that's my aim at the end.
You could always message him, when you get through to that level, you could always message him. And when you get as far through the show, you could just message him and say, oh, this is what we're doing. What would you suggest we watch as a companion piece to this that you haven't given us a list for? But it's so
that's the dream.
The dream is correspondence with Marty, right? Like
the dream is to get him on your show and do a long form. Let's face it.
I absolutely would die.
Yeah, I feel like that would be the single most intimidating thing that could possibly happen to me.
but imagine it would be so cool. Yeah, I mean, you got to aim big, right, with these things. Like when we sort of go into a new project. I mean, we kept talking about our Jaws one, that like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we got Spielberg or something? But I mean, these are very lofty ambitions. I think it's fine to sort of say like, wouldn't that be nice if? But yeah, it's a nice thing to think about, but that's not sort of at the moment not pursuing that actively. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see if his daughter follows us back on TikTok. That's
yes.
And then go.
That's what I'm hoping for. Fingers crossed. Yeah. That's why I joined.
he has an account on Instagram as well.
He does. Yeah.
Which is well worth following.
I wonder how much is that his daughter like running it for him, because I saw a clip where he was talking about how he doesn't understand emails, and I was like, I wonder who is doing his Instagram for him. Bless his heart.
A team, probably a team. Yeah. But,
hello, everybody. This is Ryan.
This is Avery.
And we are from the Frame by Frame King Crimson podcast. And you are listening to Pods Like Us.
Speaking about, I mean, I'm going on a tangent already. I saw a fascinating video clip, and there was somebody was speaking with Joe Pesci, and he was talking about I think there's a sequence in Goodfellas, and he was saying how there was this scene that was, it said that it's improv essentially, but what Pesci was saying was that the improvisation, what he says, you got to understand, he says that when he goes to do a scene, he says Marty knows exactly what's going to happen from beginning to the end. And he said something about how improv works sometimes with some films. He said, you can't do that on Marty's films. He said, what you have to do is you have to decide what the improv is before it starts rolling. And then you sort of like go through it with him. And then he'll either say yes, no, or tweak. And then he said, once that decision's made, that is what you go and do on a set. He says, whereas some other filmmakers will just let you do an ad lib there on the film. And he said, Pesci says it's something about, it's like he doesn't want to waste film constantly going from one idea to another idea to another idea to another. He says, you've got to have it nailed before you go out there and film it.
Yeah, I've seen that same clip actually somewhat recently, within the last month or so. I think my algorithm found out I've been looking up a lot of things about Scorsese and was like, hey, we're gonna feed you all these clips of like De Niro and Pesci talking about stuff. But yeah, it's I think it's interesting because you think of the greats and a lot of them don't allow a lot of improv on their sets. Like the Coen brothers, I know, are like as written down to the pause. Like they allow no ad-libbing. Like, we wrote it this way, you're going to say it this way. And they're some of my favorite filmmakers. I think they make great films, but they allow no ad-libbing whatsoever. And Scorsese gets in there and like he likes to, mess around. And then Spielberg, I saw this clip where he says he doesn't even come up with a shot list for his day of directing. He either goes to the set early in the morning before the crew arrives or late at night after the crew leaves, walks around the set and thinks about what he wants the next day, and that's how he figures out his camera setups, which is crazy.
but for somebody who started in television, that is amazing, because that is not how you make television.
No, not at all. Not at all. Like that is, especially nowadays, like it's all prevised for you. But yeah, in television. And I remember Peter Falk saying about his Columbo episode that Spielberg had shot lists like crazy. He already knew what he wanted before they even got to days of filming. And so at some point that switch flipped in him where he was like, I'm good enough at this to where I can just I'll figure it out as I go. So, I mean, even Spielberg is, more or less improving as he's making his films, which is wild to me. Someone could be so good at their art that they can just be like, yeah, whatever, we'll figure it out, go. Like, and then I've also heard stories about, to bring it back to Scorsese, Jack Nicholson, famous ad-libber, right? Like, put him on the map. That scene in 5 Easy Pieces where he freaks out on the diary and knocks all the stuff off the table. Like, that's all, that whole scene, I think, is improv. And so I think Scorsese really got a kick out of working with Jack Nicholson on The Departed, but also I think that might be the reason they were a one and done type of deal, because he is famous. I think the most famous bit of that is when they're in The Departed, and the way Marty sets up his shots for his shot reverse shot is he doesn't do coverage on one side and coverage on, and then switch and coverage on the other. He just points 2 cameras at the same time so he can get conversations in real time.
Yeah.
And there's the scene where Costello's confronting Leo DiCaprio's character about the rat in the organization, and he pulls out a gun, and Leo didn't know that he was going to have a gun on him in that scene, and then he drops the gun, and it scares the shit out of Leo. Sorry, I don't know if I can swear on this show, but it scares him, and he there's a scene in the commentary or in the special features where Leo's like, yeah, it really freaked me out. I didn't know he was going to have a gun on him. And then there's a scene in a porn theater where Nicholson also improv'd that he was going to like be fake pleasuring himself to the film, and Matt Damon didn't know that, and they were filming in a real porn theater, and so Matt Damon thought it was just they were catching this weird guy on camera, and then he stands up and turns around and exposes himself to Matt Damon, and it's Nicholson. and he exposes himself, but it's fake. It's not, he didn't actually expose himself. But Matt Damon was just like, yeah, I was working with Jack Nicholson was a wild experience. And Nicholson made one of the PAs go and get him like a sex toy from next door so he could like be in character. So Scorsese really allows that sort of playfulness on his set, at least to a degree. But I think Nicholson might be such an agent of chaos that it was maybe a little much even for Marty.
Yeah, they talk about like Marty as being like a real actor's director. Like he understands that actors have a process and that there's certain things they might want to try out. But I think it's just that he values that sort of that two-way communication where it's not just someone like coming in and causing chaos on something that has sort of been pretty meticulously planned out. But if they're like, hey, I'd like to try it this way, or I'd like to read it this way, or whatever, and actually kind of tell him that, then that sort of seems to work better. And there's obviously like magic moments or lightning in a bottle moments can happen from improv. So it has its place. I can understand like for certain directors it would be incredibly frustrating. But it's good that Scorsese seems to be that kind of director who understands that is something that his actors like to do and kind of allows it to a certain degree. Controlled chaos.
I mean, one of the things that you've got with Jack Nicholson is that, he started out essentially as a writer anyway. So, I mean, because if people don't know, he wrote the script he was one of the script writers for Head, the film by the Monkees. Yep. And he was the main writer for Easy Rider as well.
Yep.
So, I mean, he's a creative in himself, essentially. I don't know what he's done since then. I've not really followed his writing or creative side other than being an actor since then. Nicholson. Yeah,
I don't know. I think once he broke, I think he kind of gave up the ghost on that a little bit. I mean, I'm sure he's done some sort of script punch-ups and stuff here and there, but I don't think he really ever... Like, I don't think he directed anything ever that I know of.
I think so. No.
Because was it Dennis Hopper made Easy Rider? Was he the director on?
Yeah, he directed that, yeah. So, research, choosing topics. It's going to be interesting, really. This has made it more interesting, knowing that you're doing it's almost like, from my own perspective, I'm seeing it as you're watching the film the films that he suggested as companions, and then you're watching his film and you're doing a comparison and essentially looking at what the films, is this what am I guessing right? You're going to look at the films that he suggested and then pick out the bits in that film that you think were inspiring, in a sense, to Marty with his own film.
Yeah, more or less. And it's interesting. And I think this is what really drew us to the idea, is that this was the hook for me, at least. I don't want to put words in Sarah's mouth, but one of the films on there is a film that I think it's the companion for Wolf of Wall Street. Am I right about that, Sarah? Do you remember off the top of your head?
Sweet Smell of Success is the film for Wolf of Wall Street.
Okay, so it's not that one. It's the
Bringing Out the Dead? Or
no.
Oh no, yeah, I know the one you mean, where it's like it came out after.
So it didn't come out after. It came out before both films, but he didn't see it until after he had made the film. So it was oh gosh, this is gonna really bother me. So the film The Appointment is The Aviator. So Scorsese also wrote little blurbs, like little commentaries on each companion film and why he views it as a companion film. And he says Edgar Wright recommended Lindsay C. Vickers' extraordinary movie. It's called The Appointment. Extraordinary movie to me many years after I had made The Aviator and The Wolf of Wall Street, but it struck a chord for me, a quality that was common to both of those pictures: the obsessive compulsive craziness, the absolute unhinged spirit inside and out. And that really caught my attention, where it was like, oh, you went and retroactively made this fit with something you had previously made and you hadn't even seen until years after you had made Wolf of Wall Street. And he's saying it's a companion to The Aviator. Well, Aviator came out in 2004. Wolf of Wall Street came out in 2013. So like at least 9 or 10 years after he had made The Aviator, he views this as like a film that would have inspired The Aviator. So sometimes it's just kind of a vibe I guess he gets off of a film, that he's like, oh no, this would pair well with this thing I previously made, despite the fact that I hadn't seen it while making the film. I now view it as something that pairs well with the film. So I just think it's for us, it was those kinds of things that caught our attention, where it's like, oh, some of this is just not even necessarily shots or particular plot points or particular, filmmaking techniques, but just a general tone of a film that fits with his in his eyes.
Yeah.
So how are you going to record and mix the show then? How is that going to be done?
Oh, that's a you question, MJ.
Yeah, that's a me question. So we record via Discord, which is sort of a community. I don't. It's sort of a social media app. It's sort of a jack of all trades. Really, that it's starting to become a master of all of them. I didn't really like Discord when we first started it, but it was free. And so what we do is we have our Discord server, and we log into that. We log into a voice and video chat channel on that. And then we record 2 ways. There's a recording bot that we have in Discord that records the actual video and audio call. Actually, just the audio. He doesn't record video. He records the bot records the audio, and then we use that as a backup. And then for our main sources, we record natively on our own computers.
Yep.
And then I mix and edit. Sarah sends me her file. I download it, bring all of that into Audacity, and then run my filters and stuff on it. And I just do it through Audacity, which is a freeware audio processing program. I'm an audio engineer by trade. So that helps, I think, a lot. I bring sort of what I lack in the organizational knowledge that Sarah brings to the table. I make up for in the tech side of it. So I just run compressor, graphic EQ, and a low pass filter through both our tracks. And then sometimes, depending on what noise looks like, I will either put a noise gate or run the noise removal tool in Audacity, which has gotten really good in the last couple of years. It used to be give a little bit of an echo, but it's gotten really, really solid in the last couple updates. So those are like the sort of meat and potatoes of what I do. And then obviously editing for content if I think tangents have gone too far or whatever. But that's like the bird's eye view of the recording and mixing process for all the shows that I do.
So I'm guessing then that you use the record from Discord. You'll use that as the guide essentially, and then use that to line up the separate feeds, would you?
No, so we use that strictly as a backup. And one of the things that Discord is that the Discord bot is really good at is lining up the tracks for us, but I don't like the audio quality on it. So for our native recording, before we start recording, well, after we start recording, but before we start speaking, Sarah counts us down 3, 2, 1, and we clap into the microphone. So I have a peak in the audio track that I can line up. And so if you line it up and it sounds like all one sound, all one clap at once, then everything's pretty much synced.
That's brilliant. That's great. I've heard people do that before. And when I recorded with Teamworks last week, I did a program where they asked me about gaming. And we spoke for a lot longer than we were supposed to do. They do it by Discord as well, which was my first time recording through Discord. I'll be honest.
Seeking Tarot is dedicated to exploring the 78 cards in the Rider-Waite Smith deck. You and I will uncover the story we all share by searching through that unknown, that mystery, that obscure. I welcome you, my fellow seeker, to the exotic lands. Maybe in our search, we can find that uncommon magic elixir. Now, grab your compass, and let's get started.
What else have we got? We've got the logo as well, which I love that. It's like the image or a variation of Marty with a party hat on. I do like that a lot. And the colourful as well with the yellow and all those colourful pictures as well.
Yeah,
who was that? Who was, go on.
Yeah, shout out to my friend Alex Jenkins, who designed both of our pod artwork. So he did our Let's Jaws for a Minute pod artwork as well, and is now our just like go-to person when we need a logo. I didn't even think to call anyone else. I was just like, Alex, we need a logo, hook us up. And what I love about Alex is how well he works to our brief, but also he will come up with ideas and try things. Like when after we'd kind of like ironed out the kinks in the first one that he sent me, he then sent me like a whole bunch of variants of like different, it sounds silly, but like different combinations of like eyebrow and hair color. So there's like one with like black eyebrows and white hair, and then a slightly grayer hair, and then like one with white eyebrows. And it was like, how do I choose between them? And sort of taking our ideas as well. Like we like the font on the After Hours poster. It's got this sort of cool like neon look to it. The color yellow, even though me and MJ hadn't had a discussion about it, we both had in our minds yellow for some reason. It's on the Taxi Driver poster. It's a nice bright color and sort of makes it different to the blue of our Jaws logo. So yeah, incredible. I love the design. I know it's sort of, it's bad to just be like, I love my own podcast logo.
Well, we didn't make it. That's, I think, that we get the pass on it of like someone else did it, and we love the work that they did. But I actually have a question for you, Sarah, about our logo. Did you tell him to use the After Hours logo or the After Hours font?
So we came up with like a mood board, or I did it, but I sort of ran it past you, MJ did. I have like, these are the kind of things we liked. And some of the things we were quite inspired by is like the Criterion cover for the Charlie Chaplin film Great Dictator, which is very kind of like graphic and like, you know, it's Charlie Chaplin by the mustache and the hat. Like that was it. So that was sort of like our main source of inspiration. And then I was kind of looking at, because for Jaws, it was easy. It was just like use the Jaws font or as close to the Jaws font as possible because it's such a recognizable font. And then I was sort of looking at Marty's posters, and he tends to use a fairly kind of like similar font on a lot of his posters. And I was just looking at kind of ones that did something a bit different. And knowing Alex as I do, I know him in real life. I know he's got kind of like a wacky sense of humor. And the poster for After Hours is quite out there. Like it's got like, it's like a clock, isn't it? With the guy's head being like twisted around at the top. and then it's got this kind of like neon font. And so I sent Alex just like a bunch of posters so he could get like a feel for the font. And I think with the After Hours one, I was like, shout out to the After Hours poster for just being completely bonkers and like different to all the rest. And I think he just liked that idea and ran with it. But yeah, it works so well. Like we've got different sort of variations of the logo of like, it looks great with just the image. It looks great with just the text. It looks great with both together. It's just, yeah, I really love our logo. I'll stop talking about it now. It's great.
I'll quickly mention that Great Dictator, by the way, is a very overlooked film. That is a great film.
Great film. It's one of my, I think it might be my favorite Chaplin. I love that movie.
That Modern Times, love that one. The Kid, and yes, that's a great film.
Oh, what a movie! I love that movie so much.
Is it Limelight? The other one, the
that's one I've owned for years, but I've never seen. The one where he plays a sad clown.
Might not be good for me and my phobias, but
sure, is Limelight? I think it's either Limelight or Monsieur Bordeaux. What's the dark comedy one he did? I think it's Limelight is the only time Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin were in a film together.
Yeah, and they work really well together as well on there. It's brilliant.
Yep.
It's a very emotional drama of a film. I will say that. But where was I going next? So I love the logo.
It's usually me who is telling like whenever someone I see on like Twitter or wherever is like, I need a graphic designer. I'm just like, Alex. So
yeah,
it's usually me that is just kind of telling everyone how great his work is. And
have you got any show music? I don't know because the show's not come out yet on the streamers, so I don't know. Have you got show music and what is it and who is it?
Yeah, I'll take the theme song. It is written and performed by once again a collaborator from the Jaws podcast. He's done our theme music for that. He also has his own show. I'll give him a plug. Fundamentals. Harley Mumford. Great guy. I mean, the nicest man in podcasting. And Harley, it was funny when we came up with the idea, Sarah and I immediately were like, oh, Harley's got to do the theme song. And before we could even reach out to him, he reached out to us and said, do you need a theme song? And we said, yeah. I know you corresponded with him about it, but the idea that Sarah and I had come up with, which is, the show's called Let's Party with Marty. We got to do the section of the Beatles song Birthday. Says we're going to a party, but we're going to a Marty party. Really? And we just kind of, I think, is that all we gave him was that sort of idea?
Yeah, it was very little direction where I was just like, Harley, need a theme song, do your best. We like this Beatles song, you can fit the lyrics to it. And that was pretty much it. So very limited information. But
and within a couple days, he emails us, hey, what do you guys think of this? And it is this parody of Birthday by the Beatles, and he definitely does the we're going to a Marty party part. But what he has done is he has taken a bunch of quotes from Scorsese himself and Scorsese films and layered them in the mix of the audio, and it is brilliant. Like the quotes he chose are so fitting to what the tone of the show is and where I think we're going with. I mean, I guess I don't know where we're going with it because we haven't started recording officially yet, but yeah, it is so beyond what even I had in mind for it, right? Like I just had the stupid idea of we're going to a Marty party, whatever, like make that an idea. And then he pulled these quotes. I mean, he even has underneath him singing, when it gets to the bridge part of the song, he has the little chant that Matthew McConaughey does from Wolf of Wall Street underneath, like as the bass of that in the sub frequencies in that section of the song, and I think it's made me laugh so hard when I first heard it, that he committed to the bit so hard that he even has the one of the few musical bits in or like organic musical bits from a Scorsese film. But I think that was important to us, one, because our theme song for Let's Jaws for a Minute is very good, but Scorsese's got such a history of music and pop music in his films. Like he is, I would say, single-handedly the guy who popularized using pop music in a film in thoughtful, considerate ways. And that is something that like dots his entire career. And so I think to have something that sort of reflects this sort of popular sensibility of using pop music that Scorsese pioneered was not necessarily something we verbalized, but I think it was something that we kind of internalized and sort of were like, well, we got to do that portion of his sensibility justice as well if we're going to commit to being the Scorsese podcast.
So what would you say is your go-to Marty? If you're just, you're thinking, this is the one Marty film that I have to watch, that you always go to.
You go first, MJ.
Oh gosh.
In at the deep end.
You know what? I know what it is. It's The Last Waltz. I love The Last Waltz so much. I have seen The Last Waltz that came out on 4K, the Criterion Collection, this year. I picked it up in July, and I think I've watched it 4 times since I bought it in July. And this Saturday, actually, I'm going to a local concert where 30 local musicians are doing The Last Waltz start to finish. They're doing the set list from the movie live, and I am so excited. I am excited like it's Christmas. So yeah, I think it's The Last Waltz. That's just something I listen to the soundtrack all the time. If I need to just throw something on in the background, it's that one.
Yeah. I mean, he's caught the band at a fantastic moment there as well. They were all great. It's an amazing concert to watch.
It's incredible. Like just the logistics. I mentioned earlier, I'm an audio engineer by trade. So like just watching that film and seeing what a production nightmare that must have been for the audio engineers of just having to keep all those. And there's a moment where there's a little bit of feedback and Robbie Robertson kind of gives a dirty look to the crew. And it's like, hey man, like this is a 5-hour concert. Like give him a little slack. And Neil Young is on stage at the moment because they're having feedback off of Neil Young's harmonica. And Neil Young catches Robbie being a little like mean to the crew. And Neil Young says into the microphone, which really makes me laugh. He goes, "They got it now, Robbie. It's fine."
Right.
Now,
Sarah's turn.
God damn it. I always say my favorite is Taxi Driver, but it does change quite a lot because The Departed is special to me as like I think the first Marty film I saw, and then sort of have worked my way backwards from them. There's still quite a few I haven't seen, including The Last Waltz. Sorry, MJ, we'll get to it. But I'm looking forward to filling in all the gaps that I have across his filmography, because there are a few. But yeah, Taxi Driver, I love that film. I remember seeing it with my husband. We were on like a massive screen. Like the first time I saw it was at the cinema as well. I always feel like that makes it feel like quite special when you see a film for the first time at cinema, and it was unreal. Bob De Niro in that film is so good. I love that film so much. The score is incredible. It's amazing. Yes.
I've only seen Taxi Driver one time.
One time in your whole life.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Soon to change.
Yep.
I've got to pick one of mine now. I suppose mine might be Goodfellas. I do love Goodfellas. I think that's a great film.
Yeah,
but
really easy to watch too. Like it's just so like it's just constantly moving. There's just stuff happening left and right in that movie. Like he's said that he has kind of like, he wanted the energy of Goodfellas to be almost like an hour and a half long movie trailer, and I think he nailed it.
Yeah. But you've also got the thing there where the ensemble parts of that, you've got actors there that are just so incredible and work so well together. And you know, there's something I really love about it is there's the bit where you've got Scorsese's mum in the film, and she's so natural with them. It's this behind the scenes thing where she's just being herself, essentially, as she is with all of these, because they know each other already. Their mum already knows these actors, and that's how she is with them. And there's just something so magical to that sequence that draws me to it, knowing that behind the scenes fact. It just makes me smile when I see it, and that's his mum, you know. And I'm thinking, that's how she is.
She's amazing. It's so great. It's almost like that could have not been like that was, like you said, like just a behind the scenes thing where she is just like making food for the boys, because that is like the sort of thing that she would do in real life anyway, as like Italian woman of a certain generation. So yeah, she is so great in that.
I'm Agent Scott.
And I'm Cam the Provocateur.
And we're from the Spy Hards podcast.
That's right, and you are listening to Pods Like Us, the podcast that also has the Midas touch.
But the John Cassavetes, I know we've got to rush on because MJ needs to get off shortly. The John Cassavetes, I could see how that would be influential, because I mean, when I see Mean Streets, I can see almost a Cassavetes style in that film. When I've watched Mean Streets, I can see very much like Cassavetes used to direct and make his films, an influence in there. I don't know whether the Cassavetes is one of the films that Marty suggested for that one.
So that was for Who's That Knocking at My Door is the Cassavetes one. But Mean Streets, so it's Shadows by Cassavetes is the companion to Who's That Knocking at My Door. However, the intention on Marty's part, despite the characters having different names, is that the Harvey Keitel character in Mean Streets is the same character from Who's That Knocking at My Door. Right. So they are very spiritually connected. So I'm sure there's a lot of Cassavetes. I haven't seen Mean Streets in years, but I'm sure there's a lot of that Cassavetes nature in Mean Streets, as well as Who's That Knocking at My Door, because of how connected, Scorsese conceived both of those films as two parts of a trilogy, the final two parts of a trilogy. The first one was called Jerusalem and never got made. But that one was about that character. And so each one was about that character. It is supposed to be that character in different stages of his life with his Catholic faith, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay. So what would you say is the dream episode that you would want to do, or the one that you were looking forward to the most?
I mean, dream is getting to talk to the man himself, or sure. I would really personally also love to talk to Thelma Schoonmaker, Scorsese's editor, who is a huge hero of mine. She was recently on a podcast, like an editing podcast, and I was like, she's done podcasts, so that kind of like put the thing in my brain of being like, maybe that's the big dream. But episodes I'm looking forward to films that I haven't seen. There's a really big film that I haven't seen, but I'm going to wait until the episode that it is to say like what film that is, because I feel like everyone is just going to be really shocked. And I can't wait. You can
tell me
reaction.
When we sign out.
Yeah, I will do. I'll let you in on the secret. So looking forward to that one. There's a pairing that I'm really looking forward to, which is Cape Fear, and the companion film is Night of the Hunter, because I love Night of the Hunter, and very excited to sort of that's one of the few on the list where it's like I have already seen that pairing. I've seen the pairing for Wolf of Wall Street as well, which I think is Sweet Smell of Success. So there's a couple where I have seen them already. But I'm really looking forward to talking about that. I've been looking for an excuse to talk about Night of the Hunter, and it's like me and MJ are going to have a great time talking about those films. I know it already. So yeah, that's I think the one I'm looking forward to the most at the moment. But there's plenty. I'm excited to talk about all of them.
Okay. MJ?
Yeah. Well, Sarah took mine, but the other one I'm interested in is Bringing Out the Dead. I love that movie, but one of and that's when he has two. Yeah, he has two films that are companions to it, and one of them is The Flowers of St. Francis, which is a film about St. Francis of Assisi. What? That is such a confusing pairing to me. I've seen both. Once again, it's one that I've seen both films, and in my brain, I do not see the connection whatsoever. So I'm very much looking forward to watching them in quick succession to see if I can pick out what he means by that. And so he has two for that one. The other one is called Ordette, and his notes apply to both Ordette and The Flowers of St. Francis. And it just says, how far do you go when you give yourself to helping others? That's the question at the core of Our Picture and the great films of Dreyer and Rossellini. So I think he's viewing it as like, that's a film about an EMT bringing out the dead who is kind of at his wit's end with his job, but he still feels some compulsion to do it because he is helping people in some way, shape, or form. And I think that he views Ordette and Flowers of St. Francis as portraits of men who are sort of in similar, but maybe slightly less cynical places with that. Because to me, like, Bringing Out the Dead is it feels so nihilistic to me. And maybe it's not. Maybe I am missing that context of, no, Marty was trying to make his Flowers of St. Francis with that film, but it's just something that is so off the wall to me that I can't wrap my head around it. So I'm looking forward to like diving in and seeing if I can pick Scorsese's brain through these three films to see if I can discern what his intention was with that.
With all of your experience, then, the both of you, I feel like a baby boomer now in comparison. My 3 years have got nothing on you two. So
you're old pros.
you're old pros. So, but not that sort. So what advice would you give to people starting a podcast for the first time?
I think I said this a lot about our Jaws podcast in particular, and I think that it sort of translates over to this as well. The idea has to be something that you are super passionate about. I don't think it's the sort of thing that you can go into half-assed, because it's a lot of commitment. You've got to want to kind of put out episodes regularly, enjoy doing them, be excited to kind of share them, with everyone. I mean, me and MJ joke about this, but we do both listen to our Jaws podcast as well, most of the time, because it's like, just want to check that it sounds okay, but also like, I forget everything that I say on the episode, so I listen to them and enjoy them afresh. And it's like, I feel like you couldn't do that unless you really truly enjoyed the thing that you're talking about. I mean, Jaws is our, speaking for both of us, favorite film of all time. So going through that film in the level of detail that we did, it just never ever felt like a chore. Like every single episode was an absolute joy. And sort of catching us at the beginning of our next podcast journey is just like, I feel exactly the same about this. Like, I'm just so excited to get started. Yeah. I watched our first film today. I'm like knee deep in all of my books and research and just absolutely loving it. Can't wait to get started. So yeah, very long-winded way of saying, I think it has to be something that you love. It has to be something that you're really passionate about, because that passion will then come through to your listeners, and it will make them want to keep coming back specifically to you, because there are thousands of different movie podcasts. There's other podcasts that have covered Scorsese films. There's even another podcast that went minute by minute through Jaws. So it's not like we had a completely unique premise, but it's like, right, you give people a reason to come back to you, and that's why that passion and excitement is so important.
Yep. You can't reinvent the wheel, but if you put an extra spoke on, there's a little bit different.
Very much so. Yeah.
For me, it's 2 C's. It's commit and communicate. And that is commit to a day you're going to release your episodes. Try to stick to it as much as possible. If you're not, communicate that you are not going to be able to hit that. I think that's super important. I think consistency, I guess that would be the third one, is consistency is just like the consistency is the key of just, if you're going to do it. And also, if you're going to do it, just do it. Your first episode's not going to be that good. It just isn't, right? Unless you have previous experience coming in, right? Like, I think at this point, starting this new podcast with our combined experience, we know what we're doing, right? That's the only reason we're taking on this project. It's the only reason we feel prepared at all to take on this project. But if you are new to podcasting, just record something, get it edited. It doesn't have to sound like NPR, right? There's a DIY nature to this that I think is kind of special and unique, and what makes it an art form that I love. And yeah, just get it out there, commit to a day, and then communicate with your audience if you can't make those commitments, or if something changes, or if you're going to change the format. My first podcast, the one that's still going, the format is completely different than when I started. And it's fine. Like, you can do that, right? Like, it's unless you are one of the many celebrities overtaking the space right now, your audience will go with you if they like you. And I think that people get very scared about change, but I think if something's not working, as long as you communicate it to your audience, they will go with you if they like you as a personality.
So what shows do you like to listen to yourself?
Oh, I'm very bad at listening to other podcasts. At the moment, I'm currently on like a rewatch / watch for the first time of The West Wing. So I'm listening to, as an accompaniment to that, West Wing Weekly, as a kind of like gives a little rundown of each episode. So like I watch the episode, then I listen to the podcast. I'm also very slowly going through 1001 albums you must listen to before you die, the book, and there's an accompanying podcast series to that as well, and the episodes are super short. They're like 20 minutes, so I listen to the album and then I listen to the podcast on it. But I am quite bad at like committing to like regularly listening to podcasts. We've got friends who do podcasts as well, and I listen to theirs as well. But yeah, I flit in and out of podcasts quite regularly. It normally depends on like it's related to something else that I'm currently like watching, listening to, or whatever.
I do the same thing, listening to songs. So there's I'll say 3 of them. I mean, I listen to loads of podcasts, obviously. So if there's the ELO podcast, for instance, and they're going to speak about a specific song, I will listen to the song, even though I know ELO songs already. I don't really need to with a lot of them. And the same not so much with Tom Petty. I'm learning about Tom Petty as I listen to that podcast. And then there's one I've started to listen to, which is about Talking Heads, which sometimes will be new to me.
What's the name of that Talking Heads podcast? I love the Talking Heads.
I will send a link to Sarah through Instagram, and Sarah will get that to you.
Yep.
But each time I will always listen to the song first and then listen to them talking about it. But the Talking Heads one, out of interest, is really interesting because they get the sources themselves to speak about it as well.
Oh, cool.
They've had Franz and Tina and all these people behind the scenes actually in their show as well. And so they use actual footage from interviews that they've done as well with these people in the show.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
That is.
That's right up my alley. Yeah. Yeah. I have 3 mainstays. One does seasons. It's You Must Remember This, which is Karina Longworth's podcast. It's a film history podcast. Excellent show. She does like narrative stuff. She also has a really great book about Howard Hughes and Hollywood. My My Brother, and Me, which is a comedy podcast where these three brothers give really bad advice to people who write in with mundane problems. And then a board game podcast. I love board games. You can see my shelf right behind me. They're actually UK boys. Shut Up and Sit Down is the name of the podcast. But that one, sometimes they'll reference stuff and I have to text Sarah and be like, hey, they were talking about
what's
this.
What's a meal deal?
Yeah, hey, what's a meal deal? We don't have those. Explain.
You need those.
Yeah. Tesco meal deal will change your life.
Yeah. The one that really set off a powder keg that I did not know I was stepping on was that one of them referred to toilet paper as bog roll. And I was like, what is that? And she was like, no one calls it that.
They must be from the north.
I think he is.
Loo roll. Loo roll is the acceptable. Or just toilet roll. Toilet paper.
Toilet roll.
Don't know. Not bog roll.
No. Even I don't say that, and I'm from sort of Midlands.
Yeah, it really, like, she was just like, gross. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, I did not realize this was going to like set off such a spicy take from Sarah. And I was like, it does, like, I agree that it is kind of a gross term for toilet paper. It does make you sound like a nation of Shreks.
Yeah. Nation of Shreks.
That's brilliant. I need to clip that. Nation of Shreks.
The Shrek podcast, Nation of Shreks.
Yeah.
There must be one.
If not, we'll start it.
Sarah.
If you're thinking of starting your own podcast and you love Shrek, off you go.
There we go. Free idea.
Okay, so where can people find you and get hold of you?
Yeah, we are on Twitter. Let me just open up. We're still calling it Twitter. We don't call it the other thing because, you know, we're normal, sensible people. We are at Let's Party Marty on Twitter. On Instagram, it's different everywhere, which is why I'm checking on my phone. Let's Party Marty Pod on Instagram. We're also on TikTok, and I have no idea what I'm doing. So please come and find us on there. I think we're just Let's Party Marty on TikTok. You can find us wherever you find your podcasts. I think that on all the major ones, Spotify, Apple, wherever you want to find us, we will be there. And yeah, that's pretty much it for where you can find the pod. Did I miss anything, FJ? I mean, new social media comes out every week, and I'm struggling to keep up. So
yeah, I don't think so. I think that's the main spots to find the pod.
I'll see if I can find a pod follow to use as a link in the notes.
Yeah.
New shows, it's a bit difficult to find on pod follow.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We're certainly on, like, because we use Spotify for podcasters, which used to be Anchor, which usually puts you everywhere, I think. But MJ did all that stuff, so.
Okay, you can find Pods Like Us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Twitter. I'm not going to say X either. You can contact us through podslikeus@gmail.com. Anyway, thanks for speaking with me today, guys.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
I've taken note of the Jaws podcast. That's in my feed for Thursday.
Enjoy. It's very nerdy.
Yep.
Up my street. Anyway, thank you everyone for listening, and I hope you listen again to another episode of Pods Like Us.